let's talk about the more what's the right word? Terrifying result of everything we've done in this. I'm going to say it, and people might get mad. It actually is a kind of funny video as much as it is horrifying.
Now I'm scared.
Taliban appear to fly U.S. Black Hawk helicopters over Kandahar.
Oh, yeah.
The Afghan Air Force reportedly had 167 operational aircraft, including 33 Black Hawk attack helicopters, before the Taliban took over. And there's a video, you may have seen it, of the Taliban literally flying around in Black Hawks. There's like a guy hanging from it. And there's this one Twitter account of the Taliban, and they're tweeting like trying out our new weapons and stuff like this. The U.S. just gave one of the most advanced militaries, not an air force and ground forces, to ideological extremists.
Mm-hmm.
It's
who beat us back with basically rocks and sticks.
That's the amazing thing. Like, was the goal of the Americans like, how can we funnel a bunch of weapons to these people?
No,
right.
it was, we're going to leave these weapons for the Afghani allies. It really was, but we're going to strip all their support out, and they're just going to figure it out. And then the Afghani allies were like, no, we're not, because we can't.
Well, but we also gave all those Afghan allies the option of leaving, right? I mean, we facilitated in the past couple of weeks or whatever, we facilitated a massive brain drain from that country. How do we expect it to ever stand up for itself after we basically said to all of the educated people there, why don't you just come here? Why don't you abandon your responsibility to your own nation and come to a nation that we're already destroying?
That's really the craziest thing to me, seeing so many people be like, I don't care about this place I'm leaving.
Right.
You know, okay.
Why were we trying to help a nation where the brightest people in the country didn't care about it?
Because the
heroin and oil.
No. Yeah. I was going to say these people were not raised. You know, a lot of them are young. Like the one guy who got on the plane and then died. I think he was 19 years old.
Right, the soccer player.
So he was born into occupation.
Right.
He has no sense of country, no community. So when it all comes crashing down, he's like, that's what I recognize, and I don't know what that is, so I'm going with that.
Right.
So the United States did a very, very poor job of culture building. And you know what's funny?
Well, we shouldn't be culture building somebody else's culture.
Well, no, for sure. We shouldn't have been in there in the first place.
Yeah, not with military.
But the point is, if you want an operation like this to be successful, to like create a stable country or whatever, you've got to give people stories and things to rally around and victories and something like, you know, we have this story of the writing of the Star-Spangled Banner where like the bombs are exploding, and then every time a bomb blasts, you could see the flag just as the light of the explosions. And then when they came back to the fort, what did they find? The dead bodies of the American soldiers who were running in and holding the flag up, and their bodies formed the base that kept it. Those are the stories that people are like, shed a tear, like, yes, we did it. They don't have any of that.
We even have cultural stories, though. I mean, if you think about it, during the Cold War, you know, the USSR was our big enemy. And how did we infiltrate the USSR? We, you know, Americans and Europeans would go there with suitcases full of blue jeans and Beatles tapes. You know, we infiltrated culture from the bottom and from the side and
Taliban,
from the angle.
They make the blue jeans illegal.
Right.
You'll literally be killed in public if you're listening to music in public.
And you know, I think that that's something that America forgets is our best offerings are not our, you know, administrative level things. Our best offerings are our culture, and we are undermining that too at every turn.
In the United States, we are undermining our own culture. It's falling apart. I think for the most part, the uniparty is absolutely to blame. These people have no idea how countries are run. Politics is downstream from culture.
Yeah.
And so the Republicans clearly do not understand this when they're like, we got so many judges and then the judges are like, political pressures forced me to go in the direction of mainstream culture.
Also, once you're in court, you lost. It doesn't matter what the victory is.
I got to say, this 21st century war, because this is to both the points you guys are making, with the new age of military and the way it's done with the internet, you don't send troops to a country, nation building. You don't put a soldier on every block and every window so that they can't get from place to place. You basically are controlling the system because they have Facebook groups. They can coordinate on the internet now. Putting troops in a foreign country to nation build is not the tactic anymore. And if anything that I've learned from the vets that are coming back there, it's that. You did not fight in vain. You fought to teach us that in a modern war, we cannot be putting boots on the ground to build nations. It has to be through the internet.
except when you can't get internet in there, either because of the mountainous region of the country or because of the ideological extremism.
Yeah, that
which
sucks.
which is my point about what's happening here in the U.S. They spent so much time worrying about Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran in between that they ignored the fact that the U.S. itself is being overrun by a psychotic cult of people. And I'll tell you this, I love the idea of the cult. You know why? Because I saw this post about horse dewormer on Reddit. Okay, listen, and the people in the commented like it's a death cult, and I'm like, bro, if you actually did 2 seconds of Google searching, you would realize that certain medications, which are widely available at Walgreens, but for some reason the media keeps saying horse dewormer over and over and over because you are in the matrix. And so here maybe that's what they're thinking. They're like, I don't know, let's have a dumb population that'll allow us to flourish. No, it won't. A bunch of people who have no idea what's going on, who can't make any decisions, and perhaps you think that'll empower you, but it guts the country from the inside. It's a brain drain happening in our own country.
We've done it on purpose. I mean, we did it on purpose because we had these ideals of what we should be doing instead of the thing we were doing. So we've gutted our educational system. We've completely devalued the college degree. We've devalued graduate degrees. We've devalued diplomas. We don't learn anything in schools at this point. We don't teach anything, you know.
Imagine unironically thinking college was a good idea.
Right? You know? Yeah.
Or unironically saying college is a good idea.
I'm sure that I have a similar experience to you guys. When I was a kid, my parents were like, you know, you're definitely going to college. And I'm looking at my son and I'm like, if you want, maybe you could go to state.
I'm totally different from you. I'd be like, no.
Yeah, make sure he understands compound interest.
I'm telling him, you know, like the money I have saved for you, you could also just buy some property if you want. You know, you could travel.
Start a business at 14.
You could do whatever you want with this.
You could read on your own on the internet, which is now free.
Exactly.
And learn how to discern between real and fake news, and then teach yourself. Because there are a lot of prominent young people or young people today who are older but rose to prominence when they were young because they just went online. And there's some famous stories about young hackers or like, you know, let's say tech entrepreneurs. And when they were 15 years old on the internet in forums contributing code, the other 30-year-olds taking that code had no idea it was a 15-year-old contributing.
Right.
And so there's a real opportunity to get away from that broken system. But I do think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, though, with the coming collapse. Remote working means you'll be around your kids more often.
Right. That is a plus.
And remote schooling means the parents are more likely to be near their kids when their kids are learning.
And to see what's actually being taught.
Right. The CTO of Mines,
which is pretty important.
He was 17 when he started working with Mines. I mean, you can do it young. You do not need school.
This is the big thing why we talk about the Cast Castle vlog we've been doing and building culture and trying to bring more people here to have fun.
Yeah, that's so important. That's like the most important thing is storytelling, you know, remembering the old stories. I think that's a big part of it too. The more we replace the canon with things that we think, you know, are contemporaneously important, the more we undermine what our culture is founded on.
There's a really interesting...
We have to go back to the old stories.
There's a really interesting kind of similarity between some of what's happening with the Taliban flying around in Blackhawks and what's happening in the U.S. We have ideological zealots who have taken over the New York Times, for instance. And so now they're wearing it like a skin suit. And we see that with so many different franchises and movies.
Ezra Klein at the New York Times, we've seen that.
What did he do?
He's just, you know, he's writing these columns all the time that are just supporting the administration without any real reason. Or Jennifer Rubin today at the Washington Post.
Ridiculous.
Where she was like, the U.S. is still the only superpower. And it's like, girl, if you got to say that, we're already in trouble.
But so the New York Times, this powerful institution of, you know, 100+ years or whatever, now being worn as a skin suit by these ideologues, American military power and Air Force supremacy with the Blackhawks, now being worn by an ideological extremist group that's have seized control of this infrastructure.
How many missiles?
I'm not saying it's identical. I'm just saying there's an interesting similarity.
They're not going to tell you how many missiles they left. They're not going to tell you how much equipment.
Did you see this Taliban's new arsenal graphic? Was anyone able to?
Yeah, there were some graphics, but I couldn't.
22,000
figure
Humvees.
out where they came from.
It says it's from the U.S. Government Accounting Office.
Oh,
Ian,
interesting.
What country is due west of Afghanistan?
That would be Iran.
And do you think that when everything starts falling apart in Afghanistan and they need electricity and infrastructure and resources, do you think they might say, hey, Iran, look at the 42,000 SUVs we have. Might you need some of this?
Yes, I think
we have some Hellfire missiles sitting right here in this building. We can't do anything with them. But you know what we do need is electricity.
And Iran is pretty close, a lot closer to nuclear capability now at this point anyway.
I'm willing to bet the moment they took Kabul, like I'm willing to bet a phone call was made the moment Donald Trump signed that peace treaty with Iran was immediately like, give me, like, what do you got? What are we going to do? But I'll tell you this, there may have been some phone calls back and forth back then. The moment word got out that Bagram was abandoned, that all of its equipment was abandoned, Iran called up and said, called up the Taliban and said, buddy, hey, how you been?
The most popular kid.
Who's always been there for you?
What do you think would have happened if the U.S. had left on Trump's timetable?
It's not so much about the timetable. It's about the caliber of leadership.
Right. I'm wondering like how that would have been. If it would have been any different. Biden has said repeatedly that he doesn't think it would have been any different.
Well, he
says, I think he's wrong too.
It would have been. It would have been similar.
A little more organized, perhaps.
It's not so much about the timeline. It's the bigger question is what would have happened if Biden stuck to the arrangements and agreements set forth by the Trump administration. How about this? Why did they abandon Bagram overnight? Because they easily could have said we're evacuating out of Bagram. Why didn't they Why didn't they do in April? I haven't fact checked this, but I've seen some reporting. In April, the U.S. issued a warning to American citizens: you need to get out.
Right.
Now, a lot of Americans chose to stay, and that is true. But I don't think it's as easy to say that Americans were like, well, they're choosing to stay. That's their problem. Well, it's probably like there's people they're trying to help and won't leave behind.
Right.
And so that means the U.S. need to have a hard extraction, like, come on, get your stuff. We are leaving. You can't stay. It's tough, though. Americans do have a right to choose to stay in a combat zone, private contractors or whatever. But I believe if they stuck to the original plan, and I'll tell you this, it's more to do with the leadership than just the plan. But if the original plan was stuck to, I don't think this would have happened. I think the Taliban would have absolutely tried moving forward, and then there would have been some very serious drone strikes. Drone striking, moving militants through the desert, heading to provincial capitals is a lot easier than doing a drone strike on residential houses in Kabul, which just killed a bunch of kids.
Yeah, I think that there's also something to be said for sticking to the plan that your predecessor laid out, because America's word is now garbage. We made a deal, and then we were just like, meh.
Yeah, but the Taliban. Hold on.
I feel like that's a problem. Like,
but the Taliban,
regardless of whether or not the Taliban would have stuck to their end, the U.S. once the U.S. makes a deal, like, we should stick to that. It shouldn't matter who's in power.
The Taliban broke the deal.
Right.
No, I'm sorry. I take that back. Biden broke the deal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He broke the timeline.
We should have as soon as he got into office, he should have said something like, if this was the view, I don't think we should leave right away, but we said we would, so I'm going to honor the word of the United States.
Yeah, I feel like he didn't do much about it in the early days of his presidency.
Yeah, he didn't do anything except reverse Trump bans on critical race theory. He spent days reversing executive orders instead of actually, and getting masses of praise for that.
I could see like months and months where they did not do anything about evacuation, even though they knew they had the timetable, because in the back of his mind, he was like, F Trump. I'm not paying attention to that guy, whatever. I'm not.
Right.
I'm focusing on this. And he had months to prepare for this.
Well, and I think he also had this completely backwards idea that the entire rest of the world thought that Trump was as illegitimate as the current administration thinks Trump was. But in fact, that wasn't the case. Whether our allies or enemies or whatever liked or didn't like Trump, he was the legitimately elected president, and he was treated that way, as well he should have been. And his bilateral agreements, were the word of the United States, whether Biden liked them or not. So when he came in, he kind of acted like, oh, the past 4 years, I can just, completely sweep them under the rug and get rid of everything that happened during that period of time, because everyone knows that was an illegitimate presidency. And that was completely bonkers and a slap in the face to the American public that voted for the previous administration.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.